Welcome to the True North Fantasy Football Podcast.
What is up, fantasy people? You are back with the True North Fantasy Pod. I am Trav. As always, I'm coming live from Dirty Laundry Studios here. You can find me on Twitter at TSeal14. The crew is at True North FFB, and you can find all their work at truenorthffb.com. We are into the second week of the playoffs. It's getting pretty fun. Some of our teams have whittled down. We at True North here are moving towards a bit more dynasty focus. I do want to highlight our Saturday night show, The Spot, which will actually be on Friday night. So that's where I'm steering folks for that redraft content. The guys are going to be breaking down all the matchups this Friday night because we got the Saturday games. It is a fun time. But I am not going to wait any longer to introduce these guests. I'm super excited to get these two on. I actually had them lined up, but I had to cancel last minute, probably around a month ago or so. So I appreciate you guys coming back on. They are fresh off of the Fantasy Football Confidential podcast, which just finished, which is on Wednesday nights at my time zones are a little bit off. So I'm going to go 9 Eastern, I believe, because I'm at 10 Eastern. You guys are an hour before me, so perfect for our listeners and viewers on Wednesday nights. They can check you guys out and flip over and see my ugly mug on Wednesday nights. So thanks for joining. We got Troy King. You can find him at T King Mode. He is, like I said, with the FF Confidential podcast and also writes for Ball Blast. You can also see his immaculate Photoshop work on Twitter every single day. Troy, what's cracking, buddy?
Man, nothing much, bro. Trav, I appreciate you having me on, man, and I appreciate you understanding art and appreciating art. Some people don't appreciate art like you and I do, so I like that shout out.
Yeah, hey, it is beautiful. You could be selling that stuff, Troy, but maybe I shouldn't have said that because we on Twitter just get to reap the benefits of it. So, and then my other guest, she is also with the Confidential Pod and with the Sons of Dynasty and FFSQC. That is Linda G. You can find her at Lindellians. And Linda, just really quick, I want to say that is not a play on the word dandelions, which I always thought. I'm thinking of it more now like the word medallions. Which I think is kind of fitting just because all that shine you got, Linda. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you guys for coming back. You like that, Troy? You like that?
I like that.
I'm going to use that from now on. I've been using Funyuns, which is much less valuable than medallions.
There's no like I was playing on like the LIONs, right? Whereas Funyuns is the Y. So yeah, you can feel free to use medallions whenever you want. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. We had a good time on the pod before this, but I've been looking forward to this since before my actual buying a mic and deciding to talk on a podcast day. So well, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we've been chatting for a while trying to line it up. It's long overdue, but I'm happy to have you guys on, and I'm hoping this won't be the last time. Tonight we're going to be talking about some overachieving players. We've got some people who we had some form of expectation for coming into the season, but in my opinion, they've exceeded it. So I wanted to talk to the two of you about it and see what you've thought. We are going to get into another segment of I Got 5 on it with Monkey Knife Fight, as always, where we go through a player prop game, toss a couple bucks down and see if we can get the W. And then we are going to finish off with some breakout players. So the three of us are going to just list off one player that we think is going to be a 2021 breakout. Obviously, super, super early for that. Lots of situations are still going to shake out, but it's kind of fun to just kind of throw them out into the ether this early when we haven't even hit the off season. So before that, the two of you actually are involved in what I just want to give a shout out to, and that would be the True North MKFN lip sync battle. I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who has put a submission in. I never anticipated that we'd have this much interest and this much fun going on in the fantasy community, but it's definitely our pleasure to have brought some bit of fun out to everybody because they bring all of that to us every day. So yeah, the lip sync battle, if you haven't got an entry in, make sure you record that video. Linda did a wicked Nickelback, I will say. And then Troy, you did an incredible like early 90s rap song, and it's slipping my mind right now. But it was great. That's right. It Takes Two. And when the shades came off, I told you this in the DMs, when the shades came off, shit went down. It was awesome. So yeah, anybody who hasn't got it out there, post your video on Twitter, tag True North, and use the hashtag lip sync knife fight to get in on the lip sync battle. It's going to be a bracket style tournament. Our sponsors at Monkey Knife Fight have come through huge. Everybody who makes it into the 16 entrant bracket is going to get a piece of swag from Monkey Knife Fight. The winner and runner up will get some Monkey Knife Fight cash as well as a piece of swag from True North. So we're super excited to do it. It's just been such a fun event. I've had fun the last few days just checking that hashtag and finding all the good ones. So shout out to all of those people who put that in. But Linda, Troy, let's get into it. You guys are coming into hour 2 of podcasting for the evening. So we'll fly right in here. The Overachievers. I listed some players here, just some people who we thought may not necessarily have this kind of production, who have produced. I will have a couple of honorable mentions because there are some that are pretty clear that I don't have included on here, and I'll just kind of explain why there. But first, we are going to start with the quarterbacks. And number 1 on the list, I think, has to be Justin Herbert. We at True North call him Herb Kid, and that is courtesy of Tyrell McLaughlin. So Herb Kid is the quarterback 8 right now for the Chargers. Everyone thought that Tyrod was going to be the starter coming into the season. So I don't think most had this kind of expectations for Justin Herbert this early in his career, but he's been fantastic for fantasy owners. So Troy, let's start with you. Did you have any expectations for Justin Herbert in 2020, or did you think it was going to be the Tyrod show?
I thought it was going to be the Tyrod show. I thought that we were going to see Justin Herbert later in the season, but I thought also when we did see him, I thought he was going to struggle. I would be really hard. I don't know many analysts that knew that Herbert was going to be a thing. I thought he was going to struggle in the NFL, at least starting off. So the fact that he's stepping in his rookie season, producing and performing at the level that he has, almost like historic levels, pretty much, like I'm blown away. And I picked him up in a lot of redraft leagues, and I've been reaping the benefits. So yeah, he's been extremely impressive. I have nothing but good things to say about him, and I think he blown away everybody's expectations. So I'm a huge fan of Justin Herbert going forward.
Linda, you are a fan of the Denver Broncos, so he's in division, so you must be a little bit torn on that one. But what did you think about what Justin Herbert's done in relation to what you thought coming into the season?
I mean, I anticipated Tyrod Taylor playing maybe half the season. Anywhere that I did take him, I followed that up with taking Justin Herbert. In the couple rookie drafts that I did manage to get him, it's been great. But you could get him so late. I mean, you had Burrow and Tua go, and then you could get Herbert in the second round sometimes, like easy, and Hurts while we're at it. But he's been so much better than everybody thought he was going to be. We all thought he still had like a lot to work on, and he seems to thrive with the people he's been given and in that offense. Unfortunately, his coach can't manage a clock to save his life, so the wins don't reflect it, but he's far exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, me too, in a massive way. I was with you, Troy. I thought he needed development. I thought all he threw was frozen rope balls. I thought he needed some touch on the ball, and I thought he needed to play against these caliber of defenses that we're seeing in the NFL. But I was just wrong on this offense overall. I just, I didn't think I thought Tyrod was going to be in there, so I thought all these passing weapons would suck. I wasn't that high on Eckler, but then Justin Herbert comes in and he's early career Phillip Rivers, just getting it to all these. Well, obviously not like a player comparison, but he's distributing like Phillip Rivers did. That, let's just say that. So I'm actually curious, Linda, we'll start with you on this one. If I were to tell you that I think Justin Herbert has a quarterback 1 finish in his range of outcomes as early as next year, would you say you'd be buying or would you be selling that take?
I think I could buy it. I think it would take maybe like a mere pep talk to be like, we can do this. So it wouldn't be like a smash buy, but he's just been absolutely incredible. Next year, they're going to have off season to study him, but he's going to have an off season to get accustomed to his team, and it will be his team. So I could absolutely see that not being outside the range of options.
How about you, Troy? What do you think about his fantasy ceiling?
So quarterback 1 overall, that's the question. Quarterback 1.
Not predicting him to be that, but do you think that's like a possible outcome for him?
Nah,
No
not
way.
with. Maybe if Mahomes decides to retire,
Right.
okay, cool. But for me, but no, top five, yeah, I'll give him top five. That's his ceiling, easy. He definitely has all the weapons. He's mobile, has a big arm. He's shown accuracy. So top five, definitely. I don't think he has a QB1 ceiling. I believe only maybe two quarterbacks have that in the league. Maybe like Russell Wilson has that ability. I believe Mahomes does. Maybe if we see 2019 Lamar, I don't know if we're going to ever see that again, but I don't
Maybe
think that
Kyler.
we're going to see. Kyler. Kyler,
Yeah.
if he's been past couple of weeks, he's been kind of sucking, but if he's like the way he was, I think this is injury, but he's been like he was in the beginning of the season. Yeah, Kyler has the ability, but I don't think Justin Herbert is quite there.
So I actually do think that it is. And I think you alluded to it there, Troy, in saying that he's mobile. And I think that's where the upside could come for him to have that. He's got under 200 rushing yards this year. And, I think he's got the mobility to far exceed that. The last 4 games in particular, he's only got 4 rushing attempts for 9 yards. So I think there's definitely room to grow that 1 week. I think it was week 7 where he was the quarterback 9 carries, 66 yards and a touchdown. So I think if they can uncork that a little bit, then I think he can definitely be the quarterback 1, especially if Austin Eckler's healthy for a full season, like my man D Brown's saying. What up, D? And then with some red zone carries potentially too, like Justin Herbert's only got 3 carries inside the 5, and that could potentially go up as well, which is crazy because their running back situation has been garbage. You would think that maybe they would roll him out and let him run it, but 2 of those have actually been for touchdowns, so it's efficient. So I think he could do it, but I kind of feel you there, Troy. He would have to have a lot of things go his way to outdo those other guys who have that immense rushing upside, right?
Right, exactly.
So we're going to move on to a running back now. We got Herbert there. We did have some other good quarterbacks as well, but I think Herbert was the one that I wanted to highlight there. And the first running back I want to talk about is somebody that has been often dogged by myself, and that would be David Montgomery. He's been on a tear lately. He's been the running back 2 over the last 3 weeks. He's made a couple of big plays. He's been getting a lot more targets than we thought this season. I'm wondering what your guys' expectations were for him coming into the season, and whether, he may have changed your opinion of him by his performance this season. Troy, let's start with you.
I was with you, Trav. I roasted this man so many times. I have 0 shares in David Montgomery, and I'm in 12 leagues. I'm like, nah, I don't want this dude. And I passed on him so many times. And for to be most of the season, he was proving me right. I'm like, see, this man, he's trash, he's garbage. But granted, the whole Bears offensive line and all that, but there's a whole situation where I don't want anything to do with him. Then the past couple of weeks, he started slowly showing up, and I'm like, dang, I'm gonna have to give this guy some respect. As he's been involved in the passing game, he's been also breaking those big plays is something that we haven't seen from him. And that when I was watching the games, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know he was that fast, to be able to do that. And so, I can admit when I'm wrong. Like, I've been wrong on David Montgomery. He's showing out, and kudos to him. But yeah, I was just like you. I was roasting him. I'm excited. Hopefully next year, especially, like, they can retool that offensive line. They get a new coach, and they just get a revamp. And I believe that he could be a viable, he could be an RB1, next year if he has, some major changes. But yeah, I got to give him credit. My views definitely changed on him.
And how about you, Linda? Where do you sit on Monty?
Well, fellow Sons of Dynasty crew member BZB had me completely bought into David Montgomery. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I'm a studier, so I'm not analytics versus film. Like, I have a whole subgroup where I'm like, I'll listen to all of you, and then I'll make a decision. But BZB had me bought in on Monty. And so I have quite a few shares of him where I could, and where, like, I felt comfortable. I wouldn't take him at insane ADP or anything, but he's still, like, after the first 9 weeks, it was going like, is this the answer? And he's proven himself for sure in the last, especially 2 weeks. But like Troy said, if they rebuild that offensive line and the staff, that I think he has potential to continue building on what he's been doing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's funny that you mentioned BZ because him and I go back and forth about Monty a lot. I dog him on Monty quite a bit, and he's a good sport about it, and he gives it back to me about Miles Sanders. So, but I do have some concerns, and I want to talk a little bit about the big plays. So the last few weeks he has had a couple. He had that 80-yard run against the Texans this past week, and he did have a 57-yard run 3 weeks ago against the Packers. But I think he kind of needs that in order for us to see the ceiling that we've seen the last couple of weeks. Because if you look at his stats, those are his two longest runs. Yeah, what's up, Linda?
Also, Miles Sanders.
Yeah, what? He's amazing, isn't he?
So you need those big break-off
Well,
runs.
yeah, Miles Sanders. I will say that David Johnson's big run was 80 yards, and Miles Sanders was actually 82. So Miles was still better. I'm just gonna say that. But no, I'm with you. And like this is totally separate from the like Miles versus Monty, because Monty has definitely outproduced him this season, and the Eagles have just as much work to do on offense than the Bears offense does. But yeah, if you look at Monty's rushing work, especially, he's needed those plays. Like those 2 games where he had those big runs are the only games that he has 100 yards rushing on the season. And he hasn't gotten a ton of touchdowns too, which I think he is probably due for some upwards regression. But the pass catching has been holding him up, I think, in my opinion. He's got those targets since Tariq Cohen went down. So I think for me, I'm still not super sold on Monty because I don't think he's going to be one of those guys who makes big plays very often. And I want to see somebody who's getting 200 plus carries make some of those big plays a little bit more often. He's only got 17 runs of 10 plus yards on 170 carries. So that's a sharp football stat called explosive play percentage, and he's outside the top 40. So I do want to see more of that, but I do want to see this pass catching continue. And Tariq Cohen's a free agent, which is a good thing for that. So if we can see that, I will come fully on board the Monty train. BZ, this is on record. You can clip this, you can post it in the group chats and throw it in my face later. I can come aboard to the David Montgomery train. I just had to say my piece there because I'm not there yet, and I think there's some good arguments. But Troy, Linda, I wanted to play a little game of either or. We like to do that sometimes where we just take some players. This is for Dynasty. I want to see if you like kind of a gauge of where you might rank this or rank David Montgomery. So the first guy I'm going to ask is David Montgomery or Kenyon Drake. Whoever's ready, go ahead.
David Montgomery, just because I don't know where Drake's going to be next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm probably in the same boat, but they are very close. What about David Montgomery or Ronald Jones?
Jones.
I think I'm David Montgomery on that one.
Are you? Yeah, I think it's close. I think I probably lean David Montgomery as well, just because Bruce Arians is just a cold-blooded killer when it comes to guys underperforming. Like he'll axe them no problem. Like he brought Leonard Fournette in to ideally do that, but Fournette just wasn't up for the challenge. So I'm with David Montgomery on that one. This is an interesting one too, because at first glance, it would seem like it's clear the other player, but David Montgomery or James Robinson. Obviously James Robinson's had that big year, but we're going to see a lot of change in Jacksonville, and they don't have a ton invested in him.
So this is really hard for me. So if I knew that if they don't draft a running back next year, it's James Robinson by a mile. But because of that uncertainty, I'll go David Montgomery.
Nice. Linda, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think from a dynasty standpoint, I would go Monty.
I'm going to take the shot. I'm going to take the shot on J Rob on that one. There might be a little sentimental value in the fact that he's held up like 9 of my rosters this year after all these running back injuries. But I just think it's been great to see what he's been doing in the pass catching department, as well as just an incredible runner. I think there was a stat posted this week that he has almost as many rushing yards after contact as Jonathan Taylor has rushing yards total on the season. Obviously, that's a product of volume because James Robinson's had the volume all year where JT hasn't necessarily. So I think that would change with a full year on both ends. But I think that's an incredible stat to show that James Robinson has been doing a lot of this himself in a shit situation. This one's interesting too. Kareem Hunt. He's got that 1 year left with the Browns. And who knows what happens after. There's always the knucklehead factor involved when you get Kareem Hunt. But David Montgomery or Kareem Hunt?
I'm still Monty.
Really?
I love Kareem Hunt as a player. I guess David Montgomery, but it feels gross to say that.
I'm like by quite a wide margin Kareem Hunt on this one. Probably not like in my rankings. I think Kareem Hunt's probably 15 or 16. And David Montgomery, I do have him ranked as my dynasty running back 21 right now. So not too far off. But for me, like if you insert talent, I don't really care where Kareem Hunt goes because he's shown us that he can do a lot on not a ton of touches. So, get him 15 plus carries a game along with the 6 targets and look out.
Oh, yeah. All right, no, that's fair. That's definitely fair.
But I mean, give David Montgomery all those targets too, and give him more efficient carries with a better offensive line and an offense that's actually going to put a little fear into a defense. I think he has that within his ceiling as well. So, an interesting conversation. David Montgomery is going to be an interesting guy to rank going through the offseason for sure.
Running backs as a whole are going to be,
yeah.
Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, Philip, like all these dudes that are going free agent, it's going to be
and not to mention you think about David Montgomery's the running back 9 right now. That's without Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon for most of the season. So like, not only are these free agents going to go to new places, some of these big top tier guys are going to be inserted back into the fantasy world as well as a couple of rookies, hopefully, because we love those rookie running backs. So it's going to be fun. I'm a big running back heavy guy myself, so that's kind of music to my ears, and seeing all the chaos just kind of brings up buying opportunities as well as potentially some sell opportunities as well. So it's fun. I love the offseason. I'm actually really, really excited for the offseason. I got a couple of championship runs coming, but I can't wait to get digging into that data. The next guy, we talked a little JT. Let's talk about the thorn in his side, Nyheim the Dream Hines. He's doing a really good James White impersonation so far this year with all those receptions and targets. He's the running back 16 in PPR formats. I don't think anyone expected that. I was on him the season before this one, but I was off of him coming into this season. But it's been an interesting season for him. Frank Reich has used him very well, and I'm curious, just kind of as like an overarching philosophical question as far as dynasty rosters. Troy, we'll start with you. Do you pick up a lot of these scat back guys? Is that somebody that you covet to have on your team, or is that something you stay away with without having that rushing floor?
Nah, for me, I like the scat back guys. So Nyheim Hines is funny. Actually, this offseason, I wrote an article about him. I was actually pretty high on him, surprisingly. And it's worked out. I mean, he's been very inconsistent. Like, the reason why he's RB16 is because he's had those random blow-up games, and that's helped his overall projection. But there's a lot of times where he's been irrelevant. So I'm not going to pretend like, every single game that he's like a viable starter. But I like those scat back guys, especially in PPR. And not mainly full PPR. Half PPR, I'll grab them, and they can help you as a flex, but I'm not as excited. Full PPR, I love them because, if they get 4 to 5 receptions, that's gonna significantly help your team. So I definitely love those scat backs in that full PPR format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I haven't historically been really into those guys just because of the limited rushing work. Linda, where do you sit for scat back type players who kind of have that high variance from year to year?
Just like Troy said, in full PPR, it's hard to ignore a running back that could mask as a wide receiver based solely on targets. So that's a guy that I'm always interested in if they fall far enough in a draft. In Dynasty, I'm not Dynasty centric, I'm learning. So I can imagine where in Dynasty it's less of an appeal because you want a guy that's going to pound the rock for a couple years, So I can see why in Dynasty it's a little less appealing, but in general, I've always appealed to a guy that's a little different, and a running back that's catching, 9-10 targets a game. That's different, and I like that.
For sure. And I think first off, we are all still learning in Dynasty, whether we've played for 10 years or not. Dynasty is evolving every single year. And I think you kind of touched on it there when you said if they fall far enough in a draft, because I think we would all probably say that we like these guys as role players on our fantasy rosters, right? So we don't want these guys to be our running back twos. I did a little bit of a lookup a couple months ago, and I think over the last few years, maybe 5 years, only about 4 or 5 of these guys who don't get 200 carries are in the top 24. And then when you go to the top 12, you only get about 2 guys a year who are in the top 12. So you really got to hit the right guy on those. But I think if you have those as depth pieces behind those hog running backs up at the top, so if these are my running back 4, 5, 6s, I think those guys are great to have, because as you get later in the season, they start to take on a little bit more viability with the injuries that have been coming up. So yeah, I think we're all kind of in the same boat there, that we'll give them a chance because they can have that blow up stuff. Like Nyheim Hines has a couple of 2 touchdown games this year, I believe. And so good offenses is ones that you want to target those guys on too, for sure. So with that, we talked a little JT, and we really, I think most of us in the community want to see JT hit that ceiling. We've seen it the last couple games, which has been fantastic, but Nyheim Hines does have 1 more year on the deal. Do you think, Linda, that Nyheim Hines is going to still secure these like 50, 60 plus targets next year before he goes out maybe into the free agent market? Or do you think that he might just take a back seat with Jonathan Taylor looking so hot coming out of this season?
I think he may have the potential to take a back seat. I just don't. You don't invest in a guy like Jonathan Taylor if you're not anticipating making him the star of your football team. And so I can't imagine that next year they roll out running back committee of Hines and JT. I think JT will take most of it, and we'll see a pretty big backup role from Hines, kind of Brian Hilly to Todd Gurley.
Nice. And definitely a lot more productive than that Atlanta backfield too, I think. Like if we look at Nyheim Hines, he's the running back 16. JT is still the running back 12. So I think these guys can both eat there. Troy, what about you? Do you think Nyheim is going to remain a thorn in Jonathan Taylor's Hines?
I do. Actually, I believe that he's going to, because you know why? It's because of Frank Reich. Because Jonathan Taylor, we've seen this season, he's had flashes, and there have been games where he's gotten the majority of the work, but Hines is still involved. So I don't believe that the game plan is going to change that significantly. I think it's going to be similar, because Frank Reich, that's just how he uses like his running backs. So I believe that he's still going to be a thorn in the side. Still believe he's going to vulture touchdowns next year. I believe that he's going to take receptions away from JT. JT's going to still get a majority of the work, but there's going to be those random scenarios that Hines is going to be involved, and he's going to steal valuable fantasy points. So I still think he's going to be relevant next year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Zeke and Tony Pollard, or Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds. This is a JT test. I didn't tell you beforehand, but
no, that's an interesting one, because if we're looking at Dynasty, Drake's probably not going to be there unless he takes less money than he wants. But yeah, I love Tony Pollard. We love Tony Pollard here at True North. He's going to be sick when he gets a job for sure. Yeah, that's a hard one too, because like I hope Linda's right that Nyheim Hines just gets the hell out of the way. Give these targets to JT. He's looked explosive as hell in his passing game work so far. But I think, Troy, you might be right, man. Frank Reich just wants to do this. I think that's kind of evidence in the fact that Nyheim Hines is not always necessarily on the field on like third downs or when they're behind in games. He's in neutral game scripts. He's in there on first and second downs sometimes. So that to me kind of says that Frank Reich wants to work somebody else in. And it just so happens to have been Nyheim Hines. I think for me, at least, he's not like a super effective runner, like say Marlon Mack, because I think that would eat way more into Jonathan Taylor than does the pass catching work. But that's going to be a cool one to watch shake out. We like that Indy offense with the offensive line that they've got. Hopefully they can get a young quarterback inserted so they can just kind of keep this going instead of having these like John Elway style 1 year stopgaps, hopefully. Sorry, Linda. Sorry. But Drew Lock is there for you now. He is there. He's putting up 4
this
tutties.
year.
I need everyone to chill. I just got attacked already.
There's no attack here. And I think, the boys on the Confidential, we're just having some lighthearted fun. That was a great show. I love that. You guys have a lot of fun on that show. Yeah. Where was I? I don't even recall. But no, I think Drew Lock is probably going to be there after this year, Troy. I'm thinking that they're probably going to give him another chance because John Elway needs to hit on a quarterback so damn bad.
Also, like half the team's hurt. Your wide receiver one is hurt. Your offensive line is hurt. Your entire secondary, like we don't have a single starting cornerback.
Exactly.
We have Von Miller, who's not playing. Like it's a shit show.
Yeah, that defense has been better than I expected with all those injuries, actually.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasant surprise. This isn't the year. I'm not saying next year is the year. I'm saying we're headed in the right direction. And if Vic Fangio can figure out how to fucking use his timeouts, we'll be golden.
Wow, those bad clock management coaches are really getting the scorn of Linda tonight. This is actually a little bit off topic, but Linda, I kind of want to ask you what you think about the running back room in Denver while we just kind of touched on the topic. How do you think that shakes out? Because that's an interesting one.
I don't know. They paid Melvin Gordon, so he's gonna be there next year. I don't know what they're gonna do with Philip Lindsay. I don't know how to watch an undrafted free agent do what Philip Lindsay has done. And Tommy Garrett posted a tweet earlier about like the apps like exceeded all the undrafted free agent bullshit. Like. Ooh, but I'm sure that John Elway does not give a shit, and I'm going to have to root for Philip Lindsay on a different team. And behind that, I don't know. I don't know if we draft one. I have no idea.
Well, hopefully you can root for him in a more prominent role on a different team then, right?
Yeah.
All right. So before we get into the wide receivers here, I do just want to say a word for our sponsor, Trophy Smack. If you want to make your fantasy league more than just a fantasy, you need Trophy Smack. They have trophies, belts, rings, losers trophies, and draft boards, and you can really take your league to the next level by using Trophy Smack's products. As part of the partnership that we've got, you can go to trophysmack.com, find that perfect trophy or belt, and if you buy one of those and use the promo code TNFF, you get a free championship ring, which is a $60 value. They are big and shiny, and you can put them in your league mate's face at your live draft and show off that W. So once again, that promo code is TNFF at trophysmack.com. Buy a belt or a trophy, and you'll get one of those championship rings for free. So thanks to them over there at Trophy Smack. But now onto the wide receivers, some overachieving wide receivers this season. This one might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, calling him an overachiever, but I do think that if you were to have said that DK Metcalf was a top 3 finishing wide receiver at the beginning of the season, that would have been a pretty bold prediction. I think his profile has that in him, but we didn't necessarily think the situation had that in it. The second half has been a little bit less consistent, but he's still having some of those boom games. So Linda, I'm going to start with you. Do you think he's going to regress next year, or do you think this is him now? Is this the new DK? He's top five receiver.
First of all, I hate the word regression. I feel like every time I understand it, somebody puts out a new definition. I'm like, fuck, maybe I don't get it. But I don't know if he can sustain wide receiver, like top five wide receiver. I think he can maintain a wide receiver 1 style, like a top 12. I was pretty high on Tyler Lockett. I didn't understand writing him off. I've understood it now. I got it. I get it. I've gotten it every week. I figured it out. But so not a guy I have a lot of on my rosters, but I think certainly he's proved that he can sustain a top 12 wide receiver outlook.
Troy, what's your take on DK? You loving it this year?
I'm absolutely loving it. And what's sad is I don't have one single share of DK, and it's so depressing. Like because originally in the beginning of the season, just where people were taking him, I'm just like, there are other people I wanted. Yeah, people were like, I feel like people were reaching. I'm like, nah, I'm good. But then he's blown it out of the water. And But for me, I'm like, I think he's going to continue this. And it's funny because the Seahawks have been way more pass heavy than I was expecting them to be, just because we've seen they, under Brian Schottenheimer, like they've been so run heavy over the past couple of years. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, do I just want a guy who's gonna? I thought he was gonna be more like kind of like AJ Brown, like more like efficient but not getting the volume.
Right.
Which it's fine, but like it's still in terms of like a top 3 receiver. Normally, you want somebody who's getting the volume. So I wasn't anticipating that. And DK has shown that he's a top receiver in this league. And again, he had the physical attributes, but now he's actually showing it. And I believe he's only going to go up from here. So I believe it definitely continues next year.
Yeah, he's been a beast after the catch, especially. Obviously, those jump balls and those deep balls where he gets lots of separation. And Linda, I'm with you. I was a big Lockett guy coming in. I didn't think DK was going to overtake him. He's got that mind meld with Russell Wilson, the previously Virgin Bros or whatever it is. And the Purity Brothers. We'll call them the Purity Brothers. But yeah, it's DK's done it. And I got to Dave's in here. I got to give a shout out to my buddy Ben Eby. He did call like 1,200 plus yards and 12 TDs for DK, which he's well on his way. Ben loves DK. We get it. I always give Ben a rough time about that because he's on the DK train, and any chance I get to throw DK in his face. But DK's been throwing that in my face this year, so here we are. And that's interesting that we talk about Lockett, because the next question I want to ask is, where does that leave Tyler Lockett? Like, is he starting to fade out of even like wide receiver 2 territory? He does have a bunch of weeks in the past 6 or 7 games where he's been outside the top 30. Only one top 12 week in the last 6, I think. Is he like even a strong wide receiver 2 for our dynasty rosters now? Linda, you're shaking your head. Why don't you fire away on that one?
I keep forgetting we're talking about dynasty.
That's okay.
That makes it so much more of an issue for me, because I think Tyler Lockett is talented. So if he's not utilized there and he goes somewhere, he's 27, 28 maybe, but
yeah,
that's how old I am. We're young and spry. We got it going on, okay? So I'm
almost 32, Linda. I'm getting there.
I think he has the talent to be a wide receiver 2. I don't know if while him and DK are playing on the same team, that's going to happen.
I think, like, I hate to say it, but I think you're right there. He's going to be kind of an off and on wide receiver 2. He'll give you those weeks. He'll give you those 40+ point weeks like he did a couple times this year. But like I said, he's got only 4 top 12 weeks this season and 8 games outside of the top 30. Troy, are you still in on Tyler Lockett for your dynasty rosters, or are you trying to get out from under that?
No, I'm more confident than you guys are, because I believe
I like that.
Yeah, I believe that he's a solid wide receiver 2. Granted, I'm not expecting to be a wide receiver 1. He's a wide receiver 2 that obviously has the ability to have wide receiver 1 performances, just like you guys touched on. He has the ability to have those boom games. Yeah, he's inconsistent. He sometimes falls into the wide receiver 3 category, but I am not anywhere near ready to classify him as a wide receiver 3. Like, if you put him in your starting lineup, it's a little bit – you don't know what you're going to be getting, but at the same time, you know that he has the ability to win you a week anytime he's in your lineup. It's hard to predict it, but to me, that just Tyler Lockett's resume, I'll have him firmly in my wide receiver 2 rankings.
Yeah, I think I probably will have him in there as well. I hope they can get back to a little bit more balance as far as the production going into next year. And with such a condensed offense, like they're the only 2 real targets, I think it's definitely a possibility. But then good old Pete Carroll could obviously go that run heavy scheme again. We don't know what's going to happen in the running back room. So we'll watch it shake out. But I think we do have to maybe be a little bit water, even if we are big fans of Tyler Lockett and want him to be that top 12. We gotta be liquid with that and make sure we adapt with how that offense is changing. So getting into another offense that changed drastically this year, obviously with the coaching change in Carolina, and that would be Matt Rule's Panthers. And particularly, I want to talk a little bit about Robbie Anderson. He's been somebody who has historically probably fooled me twice on buying into him when he was with the Jets, hoping for that stretch run. I think there was a couple trade deadlines where I traded for him in various leagues, and he did not come up big for me in those title runs. But I still like the player. I went back to the well in this season with Carolina. He looked really good with DJ Moore alongside him producing, which was good to see in the Matt Rule offense. But I just want it straight from both of you. Who is the wide receiver one in this offense? Are you ready to say that it could be Robbie Anderson, or is it still locked and loaded DJ Mo money?
Linda, you go first.
First of all, you brought the fucking heat with these questions. Like, I was reading it at work, and I was like, boy, this is going to be an adventure. I think Robbie Anderson's been great. I think because when DJ Moore's on the field, he's more focused on, so it just helps Robbie Anderson. But in the long run, in Dynasty, DJ Moore's a dude you can get pretty low priced right now that I think is a huge buy low target. I'm not ready to give up DJ Moore in Dynasty at all. In redraft, I've sat him some. I think that's fine. But in Dynasty, DJ Moore, like, he's shown what he can do when he's the wide receiver one. And I think we'll get back there.
Yeah, well, I think he's shown a lot more this year actually than what we thought, because like the last couple seasons, he's been that shorter target after the catch guy. This year, he was getting a lot more deep targets, a lot more air yards, and taking it to the house on big plays, which has been really, really cool. What about you, Troy? Where are you sitting on the Panthers wideouts?
So if you asked me for the first half of the season, I would have been like, Robbie Anderson took that job, just because we've said for a while he was a top 10 wide receiver. And now I'm back on the DJ Moore train in terms of he's the wide receiver one for the Panthers, just because, just like you said, he's had to do a lot of work himself. Teddy hasn't done him a lot of favors. He's had to make those big plays to be the wide receiver one, but it's nice to, because it's funny. It's like Robbie Anderson took his job because he was Robbie Anderson's doing what DJ Moore was doing all these other years. So then DJ Moore is now more like Robbie Anderson, making these big plays and scoring. But I believe that DJ Moore is more talented than Robbie Anderson, and I still think that he's the wide receiver one on that team, and he's way more valuable in Dynasty. So what you doing, Linda?
Well,
I know what you're getting at. Okay.
Get in there.
While we're on the subject, I have to decide between starting DJ Moore,
right,
should he come off the COVID list, and I think he will or should, or Jarvis Landry. And I think people think the Giants defense is shit, but that Giants defense is no bullshit.
No, the Giants defense is really good. Really good. DJ Moore's sketchy too, because he still has that injury in play, I think, too, doesn't he?
Nope.
It's totally healed up.
There you go. Yep.
Damn, DJ Moore, and that bionic Achilles or whatever the hell he's got. Jeez. That is a tricky one, because you look at game script, the Packers are going to be able to put up points on the Panthers, so there should be some passing in that game. Cleveland against New York probably, to me, looks like an ugly ball running game. I could see Cleveland getting out front just on rushing work alone. So if I know that he's good to go, I think I'm probably going with DJ Moore.
Yeah, for Seal, I think I'm gonna.
No, you're totally right to do that. Like, I think that's the right play, is because, like, Jarvis might give you a little bit of floor, but he also showed us last week that his floor is pretty low. Yeah, when DJ Moore is in there, his ceiling is worth taking a low floor. And I don't think his floor is any lower than Jarvis Landry's anyway. So I would go with DJ Moore is where I'd go.
That's a fun game. I just like to ask everyone.
She asked this on our show just a little while ago. So now she's asking anybody she look at, she's gonna ask this question.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna take it as you value my opinion. How about that? I'm just gonna take it as that.
I do value.
Fantastic. So I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I think DJ is probably the better guy. If you look at when DJ went out in week 12, he had 25 less receptions than did Robbie Anderson, but he had more receiving yards on 25 less receptions. So that's pretty intense. And it's crazy that you mentioned that Robbie took DJ Moore's job in it, because Robbie Anderson would profile as that deep kind of big play guy. But he's been getting the short targets, like you said, Troy. So it's been kind of a wild transition in that offense. I'm going to keep us rolling on to the next guy. Troy, this one might pull on your heartstrings, actually. I know you are a Miami Dolphins fan. Tua has been looking good the last couple games. My man, Grease Lightning Mike Gesicki, is now a top 5 tight end. So we're super excited about that. I'm a huge fan of Mike Gesicki. And yeah, so a lot of that might be attributed to his 3 games over 23 PPR points, which obviously in a shitty tight end landscape helps. But Troy, let's start with you being right in the epicenter there. Do you think that Mike Gesicki is a top 5 tight end, or has this been kind of a mirage?
Top 5. That is tough. I feel he's a top 5 talent. But going forward, I believe he's always going to be flirting with that. But I'm not confident enough, especially as a Dolphins fan. I love Gesicki, but I'm not confident to say he's a top 5 dynasty tight end. You know why? Because he's looked good with Tua, but the thing is, it's always about he takes advantage of injuries. Unfortunately, he's injured now, but the past 2 seasons, he's taken advantage of the fact that Preston Williams has been hurt. And then next year, the Dolphins are most likely going to be drafting one of the top wide receivers. So that obviously is not going to help Gesicki at all. Parker's still going to be there. Preston Williams might be healthy. So Gesicki, and also they've been getting the other tight ends involved as well, like Adam Shaheen and some
Smythe.
other. Yeah, Durham Smythe, exactly. So the problem is that's exactly. So Mike Gesicki, he's going to always be a red zone target, but those other factors are going to hurt him. Him and Tua seem to have a connection, but now unfortunately he's hurt. So next year, hopefully, they make it a priority to get him more involved in the offense. Shout out to Sam. What up, Sam?
Sam Dubs.
Yeah, but yeah. So I think he's always going to be flirting. I believe he's always going to be a tight end 1, top 5 tight end. I'm not confident enough to say that just yet.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki seems like a real flirty guy. I don't know why that's what popped into my head. Like, I wonder. No, I love me some Mike Gesicki. Linda, I'm curious to see what you think about the Gesicster, because I have loved him. He's let me down a little bit, but I'm loving him again.
I actually am a little pissed Troy got to go first, because I'd like to reiterate everything that he said. I expect the Dolphins to draft a wide receiver. They've got 2 viable options. Obviously, one right now is hurt, but the upside to Gesicki is he gets targets. And when there are 2 or 3 wide receivers out there that are better targets, he's not going to see those. And that's the issue. I'm not even sure I'm comfortable putting him in a tight end 1 position next season.
Wow. I think
we saw how brutal that target loss was when everybody was healthy. I mean, he had some god awful weeks, and I'm not saying I bought all in, but I just think I think if they draft somebody and if they build that wide receiver room, they bring somebody in if he ends up 4th or 5th on targets on that team, it's going to be a real issue.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And that's if he does, then it's going to be rough for him. I'm going to be the one who's a little bit more optimistic now, just because I think Mike Gesicki is what we want out of our fantasy tight ends. He's in the slot over half of the time. To me, I think his ceiling is Mark Andrews with more volume. I think he's that red zone weapon, just like Mark Andrews is. He's a seam stretcher. He plays a ton of slot. And I think he could end up getting more volume than Mark Andrews. If you look at the last couple of games with Tua had 48 attempts last week, and I think he had 38 or 39 the week before. So that is what we need to harness if we want any production out of Mike Gesicki, because they're definitely going to be drafting a wide receiver. They have to with just getting Tua. They have to tool up. And then Devontae Parker will be there. I'm curious to see what happens with Preston Williams. I could see him, unfortunately, being one of those guys who fades out a little bit. And that's another avenue for Gesicki to come in there. But yeah, so that's kind of my hope, is that obviously hope for Preston Williams not to have a job, but I hope for Mike Gesicki to produce for fantasy. And I think those are the avenues for him to do it. So that's kind of what my hope is. And I just, these 20, 22, 25 pass attempts from Tua are not going to cut it. So it really depends on what kind of offense they want to run. And some of that might have to do with not only the wide receiver room, but with the running back room that they have going into next year, because Gaskins look fantastic as well.
Oh yes, he has. I'm curious. They might draft the running back too. So Gaskins, I like him. I like what he's done, but I wouldn't be surprised if they draft the running back as well.
They might just draft them all, right? They got a bunch of picks. You can get like stud running backs in the second, third round. They don't have to focus that first. Like if they come out with a wide receiver, something sick on defense in the first round, and then they get a second or third round running back, like this offense is going to take flight.
Exactly.
And along with that defense, your Dolphins are going to be scary, Troy.
Yeah, you got a good future ahead of you. So long as they do this well.
Yeah, much better than my birds. Much better than my birds.
Yeah, you gotta. Well, we can drink together about that, but
yeah, I might have to, just for context. I haven't drank in like 5 years, and the Eagles may be driving me to drink pretty soon.
Let's talk about it instead.
Won't take much, like half a beer, and I'll be passed out. Okay, so we are going to get into a segment of I Got 5 on It with Monkey Knife Fight. So real quick, I just want to play a little bit of an ad read for our friends over at MKF. If you want the best DFS player prop games in the industry, jump onto Monkey Knife Fight. Monkey Knife Fight is sweeping the nation right now, and we at True North are proud to be doing it along with them. They've got games for all sports and skill levels that are sure to keep you on the edge of your seat, with endless opportunity to watch your winnings pile up. With our promo code TNFF, Monkey Knife Fight will match your first deposit up to $50. So sign up now with our promo code and you can get up to $50 of free money to start making some bank. Again, that's monkeyknifefight.com, and the promo code is TNFF at your first deposit to start playing today. And we are back for another segment of I Got 5 on It. Just another big thanks to our friends at Monkey Knife Fight, and a reminder that promo code is TNFF at your first deposit to get an instant match. It's been a ton of fun working with them. I mentioned their involvement on the lip sync battle before earlier in the show, and it's just been really cool to connect, and they're super easy people to communicate and kind of work on this kind of stuff with. So it's been great. So Troy, Linda, we're going to get into Monkey Knife Fight. This is my own personal account. So I will hold both of you personally responsible for the $5 to $10 that we are about to drop on this player prop game. No, but let's just kind of go over it and have a little bit of fun. We play the more or less game, so it's pretty easy. You take the players, you look at the prop, and you decide whether they're going to have more or whether they're going to have less. And we will start with the guy we talked about previously on the episode, and that would be Justin the Herb Kid Herbert. The line is set at 280.5 passing yards for Herbert against that Las Vegas Raiders defense. Troy, why don't you fire away on what you think about this line and where you think Herbert lands on it?
More. Raiders are trash. More.
Simple as that. Mic dropped. Linda, where are you sitting on this one?
Okay, well, here's the issue. When I play Monkey Knife Fight, I only play the fantasy point matchups. Right. Because I understand that better. So, like, 280 yards, like, math is not my strong suit. But I think he could hit more as well.
Yeah, I think he is going to hit more. It's funny, like the Raiders, as far as yardage given up to the quarterback, they're bottom 12. But I think Herbert is becoming almost matchup proof. And the Raiders have been scoring a little bit on some teams, and the Chargers can be scored on. So I think I'm with you both. He's going to get more than the 280.5 yards. I think he's going to push 300 in this one. And I think this one has actually sneaky shootout potential. Part of the reason why I wanted to get in on this particular game of more or less is because of that second prop right there. Darren Waller has been tearing defenses up. He's been getting tons of targets, tons of yards after the catch. He's been scoring touchdowns here and there. 68.5 receiving yards for the guy who is the de facto wide receiver one seems a little bit low for me. But Troy, I'm curious to see what you think.
I believe that sometimes when you see a line that's almost too good to be true, you get a little bit skeptical. but I still say more. I think Darren Waller had too good of a season. I believe it's a fair line. So I'm going to go more.
Linda, what are you thinking? Darren Waller, 68.5 receiving yards. For a little context, he's hit that. Wow, he's actually only hit that like 5 or 6 times this year. 5 times this year. The other times he's been below that, but the last 2 games he's had 75 and 200 receiving yards. So blown that out of the water. But where are you sitting on that one, Linda?
Man, I would have to know. Chargers defense hasn't been like that steaming hot defense that you like are scared to play against.
No. Looking up their stats against the tight end right now as well.
Yeah.
Oh, bottoms. Okay, so they've given up the 5th fewest yards to tight ends, the 5th fewest yards, but they've given up the 3rd most touchdowns to tight end.
See, that's what I was thinking. Darren Waller may be a little TD dependent this week for me. I think it's going to be a Josh Jacobs show. So I'll go under.
See, I think like before Troy, I was with you. I was smashing that because it looked super low. But then looking at Darren Waller's total as well as the Chargers and how they've defended the tight end, like tight ends have their about the 8th or 9th fewest receptions as well. So I'm going to go with Linda on this one, and we're going to go for less. The fun part about this is it's always fun during the Thursday night game. We get in the group chat and we're talking about this after. Like we've had some really, really fun ones. So I'm excited about that as well to kind of follow it. And that's a fun thing about Monkey Knife Fight is that like any skill level of fantasy player can play on Monkey Knife Fight. You can go in there, you can find a game for you. You want something complex that's like an 8-player parlay, you can do that as well. We've done those a couple times when we call those the Jetpack Smash in honor of Jetpack Galileo. Because after a show one time he was on and we saw the 8 and he said, just smash the more on all of them. I hit it for $5. I have not hit on a Jetpack Smash yet because that's 8 players that you got to get right. But I'm going back to the well pretty much weekly trying to hit one just because it's a lot of fun to follow it and we get in the DMs and stuff. So I'm losing $5 every week, but it's totally worth the excitement. So I'm going to throw 10 down on this one. I should start changing the name of the segment because I always throw down a little bit more than 5, but there's like, it doesn't have that like 90s hip hop vibe. If I say I got 10 on it, it just doesn't really do it for me. So I'm going to keep it at I got 5 on it. All right. So that is our segment for Monkey Knife Fight. And we are going to get into the last part of the show tonight. We're going to talk about 2021 breakouts. I'm actually pretty astonished. I'm just about at an hour. And for me, that's very good. We are notorious for running pretty long on our shows here at True North. So I think we're doing really nice within our time. You guys were on the Saturday Nighter. You know what it's all about. We go hard. I just like to say that we like to hit things very thoroughly is what we like to do. That's why we take longer. So yeah, we're going to get into these breakout players. First, I'm going to talk about mine. I don't want to take too long on mine because this is somebody that I called out as kind of a half breakout at the beginning of the season. I thought maybe he would emerge towards the second half. And that would be Mecole Hardman. He hasn't necessarily emerged, but I think he still is like obviously a big play waiting to happen. Sammy Watkins is on the last year of his deal, and I don't think he should be back there. I think they can probably use the resources elsewhere with the amount of money that Sammy probably is still going to want versus the production that he has given them. So I think Mecole is going to come into that role starting in 2021. And I was saying that he's versatile. He can get those deep balls like Tyreek Hill, but he's even better after the catch. Like last year, I think he averaged 11 yards after the catch per reception, but he didn't actually qualify for that because he didn't have enough receptions. But that is like an insane number. And that's due to all the screen passes that they use him on, all those shovel passes, the short stuff that they let his speed kind of take it to the house. I think like he looks like a similar player to Tyreek Hill, but I think he can actually be like a really good complement, especially with Travis Kelce looking like he's not ever going to freaking slow down. So that's who my 2021 breakout is going to be, is Mecole Hardman. I am going back to that well. Troy, what do you think about Mecole and his chances to become what we hope out of a second round wide receiver?
Sure. So, we were talking to DMs, and this season I was saying how Mecole is pretty much the water boy for Hill, Robinson,
Rude.
Kelsey, like almost everybody. Unfortunately, it's his snap percentage is so inconsistent. And I was And I was early in the season, I was believing that this was going to be Hardman's breakout. But for whatever reason, they want to limit his snaps. I don't understand, but clearly there's something in practice, there's something that he's doing that they're not giving him enough snaps. But I believe that next year, kind of like you mentioned, Watkins shouldn't be there. Robinson's probably going to be there. So those other pieces are going to be still a factor, but he's at best the third, fourth option. And to me, it's hard to be a breakout when you're the third, fourth option. So I love him. I think he's explosive. I think he's amazing. But I just believe the way that they're going to use him, it's going to cap that ceiling.
Yeah, and I think he does have to be at least that third option. He won't be second or first, obviously,
Right.
but I think he can be that. It's funny because if you put, I don't know what the numbers are, but I wonder what it would look like if you put Sammy, Demarcus Robinson, and Pringle all together. Obviously, that's like total shit fantasy math to say that Mecole Hardman's going to take exactly that workload. But I think that might give us a little bit more picture of the pie that's available for him. But Linda, what do you think about Mecole? Another player who plays on a division rival of yours as a Bronco fan.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you did this on purpose, but I'm going to ignore that part. I think he has the potential to be a breakout. I mean, he's not a guy that I'm going to plant my flag on, but he's also not a guy that I don't mind acquiring in a trade for cheap or like an add-on or however you want to look at that, because I think he does, like you say, have the potential to be the third target on that team. Well, you're the third target to Patrick Mahomes. That's fantastic fucking news. That's great news. So I think, sure, there's potential, but it's not a guy I'm ready to like yell off the rooftops that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I'm still yelling from the ground floor about it. I'm not on the rooftops yet either. I'm just kind of hopeful, you know. Why don't you get into yours, Linda? Who's your guy that you're hopeful is going to break out in 2021?
Well, it's Denzel Mims, who I adore, but I think if the Jets end up with Trevor Lawrence, and all signs point to the Jets ending up with Trevor Lawrence, they end up with a new coach. Although, not that Mims' target share hasn't been terrible. In 3 of the last 4 weeks, he's had 8-7 targets. So I think his target share will be great. I think he looks good doing what he does. He gets open. I think pairing him with Trevor Lawrence next year is going to be a beautiful stack and matchup. It's a redraft stack I will probably take, and it's a dynasty. He's a dynasty buy for me everywhere.
Denzel Mims is sick. Like you mentioned the targets, he's got 25% of the team targets since he's been getting in, and that's like getting pretty close to elite wide receiver number. And then you couple with that with the fact that he's getting his targets on average 15 plus yards down the field. That's a big play waiting to happen, Denzel Mims. And then you put Trevor Lawrence and maybe a competent head coach in there would be pretty cool. It's going to be good for the Jets. Troy, where are you sitting? Because that's a division rival for you as a Dolphins fan. You know, you might have to compete with those Jets in the next few years, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great pick. I mean, all signs point to the Jets are honestly at the bottom of the barrel. They can only go up from here. They're trash. They haven't won a game. So it's like, in terms of breakout, he's an excellent pick, especially because all the reasons that Linda said. I don't really have much to add. You know, new QB, hopefully Trevor Lawrence, new coaching staff. They put draft capital into him. All signs pointed to Mims. I think it was a great pick.
Yeah, that's funny. Just to kind of give the listeners a little bit of a look in. All three of us in the group chat mentioned that we kind of wanted to use Denzel Mims, but Linda beat us to the punch on that one. So that was a great choice, Linda, because I think like that's somebody that you could probably get as a throw in on trades as well. Who definitely I think has more 2021 upside than my guy, Mecole Hardman. And there's a lot of people like obviously like the degenerate fantasy players might not be selling Denzel Mims because they know that he's at a very kind of low price right now. But I think if you're in those home leagues and stuff, toss a feeler out there if you have like a dynasty home league, because they may be sleeping on him a little bit. But if you're listening to the True North pod, you're not sleeping. Troy, why don't you get into your 2021 breakout, our last one of the night?
Gabriel freaking Davis, man. The Bills
Nice.
wide receiver. Shout out to UCF. He's a UCF alumni. I'm a UCF alumni. So
Nice.
shout out to Gabriel Davis. And you know what? There's all signs point to just him being more involved. So next year, Cole Beasley, he's been productive, but he's an old man. He's going to be over 30. John Brown, he's going to be over 30. You know, they obviously have Diggs, but Gabriel Davis, I believe he has the potential to be at least, he's not going to overtake Diggs, but he's going to have the potential to be the wide receiver too. And you've seen without John Brown, he's been producing. Not just that, but he's been scoring. He gets targets down the field. Like Gabriel Davis in his rookie year has shown such flashes of being an elite, a potentially elite receiver in this league. And also, you can get him for so cheap. Like, he's not going to cost you a lot. So why not take advantage of that? Like, you know, I'm not sure what's going to get it done. It really depends on who has him. But he's going to be cheap. He's at his cheapest right now. So before he blows up next year, put out some offers, put out some feelers, whether he's going to be in a package deal or not. I believe it's going to reap benefits in the future.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think you might be able to still get him for a 3rd round pick right now. You might be able to, which would be a smash for me. A big shout out to our guy, Jimmy Nastic. He's been on Gabriel Davis since like the summer. He's been saying, watch out for this guy. I think he wrote an article on Gabriel Davis early in the year. So if anybody wants to check that out, go give Jimmy a pat on the back for that victory lap. Linda, why don't you tell us what you think about Gabriel Davis? Because when Troy slandered Cole Beasley there, you looked a little bit offended, I must say.
Well, I'm a Cole Beasley truther, but I think Gabriel Davis is great. I think he'll do really well in the league. I think he complements Stephon Diggs well. I don't think I need to knock on Beasley for that. Beasley's a different wide receiver, so it's fine. I don't care. But all I want to say about like getting a dude like Gabriel Davis for a 3rd if you can, or whatever you feel is a competent acquire price, is get your guy, because like 3 weeks ago I started trade negotiations with somebody, and we finally we went over 2 weeks of back and forth, and we ended up right where we started. And 2 weeks prior, when I asked my like dynasty buddies how this looked, they were like, mm-mm. And then 2 weeks later, they were all like, yeah, smash accept. So had I done it 2 weeks, it wouldn't have mattered. I'm awful. I didn't tank on purpose, but I'm told if you play Dynasty and you're tanking, just go ahead and like say it was on purpose, and nobody can like be mad at you for that. But get your guy, make the move you want to make, because I wanted to make the move 2 weeks prior. I chickened out until it came back up again, and I was like, I'm done. And it was acquiring Mims. So if you feel like you're making the move that you should make it, because it can change in a second. And I think that it'll be that way with Gabriel Davis. I think if you get him now for cheap, it'll be great. And then, you know, next year it'll really pay off.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to end on as well. Just from the dynasty aspect of the show, is just to like, if you're convicted about somebody, like hold your conviction, go out and get them. Like if you have put in the work to see why this guy is going to break out, and that is your process, go after. That's something that I'm learning, Linda, myself, is I need to like let go of these guys a little bit more. I have long trade negotiations as well. And like, I feel like my hesitance to trade because I've really liked a guy in the past, or because I haven't liked another guy in the past, has been kind of a disservice to some of my dynasty rosters. And that is displayed in the fact that I have a bunch of 6 and 7 teams that just missed the playoffs this year. So those aren't tank teams. Those are teams where I was trying to compete. I just didn't make the right moves that I needed to make because maybe I was a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger sometimes. So that's definitely a good lesson for our dynasty managers to, you know, don't be afraid. Like, I get that we get sentimental value, but this is just a fake game, you know? And if, for somebody like myself, it's kind of funny because I have 27 teams. So why not just trade some of these guys on some of these teams, right? Like but I just love my players. So that's something that I'm working on as a dynasty player. And I think on top of that, we just continually see what your areas of opportunity are as dynasty players and just try and work on that stuff. So that's it. That's the show folks. We had some really awesome comments. I really appreciate everybody who showed up and got in there. Appreciate the two of you, especially for coming off the confidential pod right into this one. Troy, I know it's mega late for you. And Linda, I believe you're a little bit earlier than Troy, correct? Because you're in Colorado?
Oklahoma, but it's only 10:30.
Why do
and
I think Colorado? I think I said that in the group chat too, is that I thought it was obviously because you're a Denver fan. I don't know why I can't get that one. It's like you have Oklahoma State flags hanging behind you or something.
Because I wish I was in Colorado. Also, pothead like I live in Colorado.
Yeah, hey, I live in Canada, so guilty. Troy, thanks for coming, man. You can be found at T King Mode. Let them know where to find the rest of your content, brother.
Sure, man. I'm a writer for Ball Blast Football, so you can check out my work there. Again, I'm one of the co-hosts of Fantasy Football Confidential. We are on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so check us out.
Wonderful. And Linda can be found at Lindellians. Think of medallions because they're shiny. Thank you for coming on, Linda. Let them know where they can find your content.
Well, Troy plugged Confidential for us, so I can leave that off. Also, some dudes I met through Scott Fishbowl and drafting from the 102 spot. We broke off. We did a best ball. The chattiest ones from that broke off again. We started a group chat. We started meeting on Mondays and just watching football and bullshitting. Well, now we do a live podcast Mondays before football. You can find us at Fantasy Besties. And then I write right now a weekly article for fantasy's sake at FFSQC. But in the offseason, I'm going to dive into some bullshit articles and see what I can't come up with for y'all.
That's awesome. You are busy then, is basically what you're saying.
You got to stay busy. Otherwise, I think about like real life problems and shit.
I hear that. Fantasy should be an escape for all of us. I love it. So thank you both for coming on. I encourage anybody to check out the work of Linda and Troy. They are not only gems in the fantasy community, their content is just as good as their Twitter presence is. So thanks again to them. Thanks again to everybody who tuned in. Shout out to Viridian Global for all of our top-notch merch. They're doing some really good things with the Viridian Football Collective. And don't forget to get in on that lip sync battle. I was very close to asking Linda and Troy if they would want to do a lip sync live on the live stream, but I decided I didn't want to spring that on them. But they're doing them on Twitter. So go check it out. If you search the hashtag lip sync knife fight and then get your submissions in with that hashtag, as well as tagging True North. So until next week, we really appreciate it. And we're getting close to the end of the season, everybody. Make sure you tune into the Friday night show for those starts and sits and see who you should play. Until next week, peace.